What's going on, my gorgeous ghost geeks? On this episode of the Warp Reality Podcast, we talk a little science and speak with ghost hunter and host of the Paranormal Hearts podcast and great friend of the show, Kat Ward. So let's go hunting. I'm sorry, I ran out of stuff to say. Let's go.
Do aliens exist, and are they among us? Are weird creatures lurking in the darkness? Do evil entities hide in the shadows of your bedroom while you sleep? Join us as we explore all this and more on the Warped Reality Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Warped Reality Podcast, Season 2, Episode 30 of the show. I am your host, as always, Ghost Joe. So, as I said in the intro, in a few minutes, we will be hearing from Kat Ward from the Paranormal Hearts podcast. It's been a long time coming, man. As every time we tried to schedule something like this podcast collaboration that we did, it always fell through for one reason or another, whether it was on my end, her end, just time in general. It was just crazy. But we even had technical issues in this show, but we were like, no, we have to keep going because otherwise this thing is never going to, go through. Maybe something or someone didn't want us to collaborate. That could be it too. I've had some weird things go on when I'm doing this show. By the way, this interview I did, it was originally edited down to almost 2 hours by Kat. Then I had actually edited down even more for this show, mainly because much of it was me telling my personal experiences. And, you guys have all heard that before. It's just me rambling a lot. So I kind of cut down on my rambling a little bit, to not bore you guys and to give you more Kat Ward, because that's pretty much the interesting part of the interview. So, and I know you guys have heard my stories many, many, many times by now. Yeah, so, it's the end of January, and honestly, I feel like time is moving really, really rapidly. It's almost Valentine's Day. And by the way, I don't know about where you live, but literally the day after Christmas, all the stores by me had Valentine's Day stuff already. I mean, it's pretty sickening. Speaking of Valentine's Day stuff, I did my Warped Reality segment on the Paranoi radio podcast this month, all about the lore of Valentine's Day, which it's out now. So please check that out. It's the Paranoi radio podcast. It's a great episode where Troubles Garcia and Big Tank talk about the dangers of fluoride. Isn't that the stuff that you use to brush your teeth? Well, there's more to it than that. So definitely check out, the Paranoi radio podcast. They drop some crazy knowledge on everyone. So yeah, check it out on all of the major podcasting platforms and your favorite podcasting platform. Yeah. So now let's get into some, well, I guess I can't call it out of this world news, more like in this world news. So don't freak out, but whenever somebody starts like that, like don't freak out. It actually does make you freak out. Anywho, everyone knows that in the center of the earth is a huge molten rock core, right? That it's constantly spinning, or it was spinning. You see, the core, which has a 758-mile radius, is 5,200 degrees Celsius and 9,392 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a hot core, man. That's real hot core. It's like hardcore, but not. It's hot core. Anyway, it's actually hotter than the sun's surface. That's insane. It stopped spinning the other day. But don't be alarmed, because this actually happens approximately every 70 years, where it will stop or pause spinning, and then when it resumes spinning the opposite direction. So the last time this happened was in the early 70s, actually. So who knows? Maybe some good music will be back due to the changes. Because the 70s and 80s music was... I sound really old. That's crazy. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Here's the interview podcast collaboration I did with Paranormal Hearts podcaster Kat Ward. I met Kat through our mutual friend and awesome contributor, and now Warped Reality Podcast family, Chris Whitehouse, who actually also has a book out on Amazon. If I haven't, discussed this before, it's called Into the Darkness, Becoming a Ghost Hunter. So definitely go out and buy it. It's an awesome, awesome, awesome book, and you're going to love everything about it. So go buy it. So Kat is a paranormal investigator for Canadian Supernatural Research Society. She's a sensitive as well as being an audiobook narrator. She is awesome, and I hope you enjoy the collaboration. So here it is. I'm Ghost Joe. I'm here with Kat. We're doing a podcast collaboration right now for the Warped Reality podcast and Paranormal Hearts podcast. So there you go.
And I'm Kat Ward from Paranormal Heart. So it's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah, face to face. That's great. Yeah, we've been planning this for months now, so it's
at least 2 months.
Yeah,
we just can't seem to get our schedules to coincide.
No,
well, especially you. You have such a your schedule is brutal compared to mine.
It's ridiculous too, because when I'm leaving work, it takes me sometimes 3 hours to get home. So I'll leave home. Yeah, so I'll leave work at 4 p.m. and I'm not getting home till 7 p.m. Then I have to eat real quick. Then I go to sleep just to come back to work a few hours later. So it's
brutal.
Nuts. So I actually do the majority of a lot of my interviews when I'm on vacation.
Makes sense,
most time. There's even some interviews that, and I feel really bad because he was a really, really good guy. I did this interview with this guy. We talked for like 2 hours. Really, really nice guy. Very, very knowledgeable. And I never aired his interview because I've never had the time to really edit the interview.
Well, maybe you can do it now.
Yeah, now I could. I have another interview that I'm putting out on the Christmas episode with John Wright. That he works in a paranormal museum about a half hour from where I live. And I met him there, and really, really good guy, really knowledgeable. He's actually a history teacher too.
That's amazing.
So he's a history teacher. He's a paranormal investigator. He's like a Bigfoot enthusiast, like UFO. Actually, and the craziest part is that he volunteers, or he's a MUFON investigator.
That's amazing.
So
I may need to meet him.
yeah, he's a great, and you know what? I was his first podcast interview. He's never done it before, so I would definitely pass him. Great guy.
The Paranormal Museum. That's the thing about the States and Canada. We don't have cool shit like that in Canada. We don't. We have lots of haunted locations, museums and stuff like that, but we don't have paracons and things like that. Which it's really sad because I really want to go to some.
Well, I'll tell you, when I moved upstate, because I live in upstate New York, when I moved upstate, I was really excited because I did some research on, the area and stuff. And I found out that the Warrens Museum was literally 20 minutes from me because it's in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I'm in upstate New York, and it was right there. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to go. And it's closed forever. Like, damn.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Why
They
is
closed
it closed?
They never really said that. This is my theory. I think they closed it because, both of the Warrens passed away.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not around anymore. I believe they closed it mainly because all these Conjuring movies are coming out. So their house is on a residential street, which is where the museum is. So I'm sure, just like the Amityville house, they get tons of people driving past there, taking pictures, hanging out. And the neighbors just got pissed off at it, too mad about it, made complaints, and they had to shut it down. And because the Warrens aren't alive, they couldn't fight to keep it open, Oh,
you'd think the Warren Foundation would be able to do something.
Or their I believe it's their nephew that runs everything now.
Chris?
You would think the nephew.
Oh no, that's grandson.
Tony Spira.
Oh, okay.
But I guess he didn't have the pull or something to keep it open. But that's why I was excited last year. I went to my first Paracon. He had a lot of the Warren stuff there from the museum. And I knew I had to go to that. It was really cool. I took a picture with Annabelle, the real one and the movie one, which is cool. And a few of the other haunted items that they had there, which was pretty awesome.
How close were you able to get to the artifacts? Because I know, are they all encased in glass?
Yeah. I mean, well, some of them, I mean, of course, obviously the Annabelle one was, and a few others were encased in glass. Some of the other ones were just kind of out of reach, a little bit out of reach behind, a rope.
Mm.
But no, very close, actually. Pretty close. And, the convention itself was great. I met a lot of people there. And I think I ended up doing a lot of interviews behind that too, because I went there, I went to every single table, networked and stuff. And everybody was really, really nice. So I was happy with the way that worked out.
Was it this year? Was it this year's Paracon you said, or was it last year?
It was last year's.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, I could have went to this year's, but I was a little upset because last year's was the first Paracon. So I believe the Warrens Museum part, because the Warrens Museum was different than the convention. It was right next door, but it was a separate price. The convention itself, I think, was $50, and then the museum was like $20 or $25 last year. Now, I guess because he saw how many people went to the museum, now it's like $70 to get into the museum. It was something like that. It was like he jacked up the price. Like, I just don't have the money.
But yeah,
no, I can't blame him either. But I couldn't afford it this year.
Yeah,
everybody was there for Annabelle. Everybody goes there.
So do you sense things from items? Because I'm just wondering, having all those artifacts in one spot, were you able to pick up any energies off of anything?
I couldn't. I mean, I don't really pick up things from, like, for me, that I don't really have that kind of, I guess you would say, ability. But I feel like it was too crowded. I don't think you would be able to pick up anything because it was just so crowded in there. And my thing that I'm always able to do is say, hey, if there's something here, give me a sign. And I always get a sign. Always.
Nice.
Always. That's why I don't do it anymore, because I have my own house with my kids and stuff. And I don't need, knocks on my door over here and things falling behind me, because that happens. And actually, that's one of my questions actually too. When you've been recording, has anything weird or paranormal happened to you at all while you've recorded, like an interview or anything?
Not to me, but I have had one guest in particular say, "Oh my God, I picked up an EMF, and I went in and I actually heard a voice, and I thought, oh wow, like." And I've had some people message me and say when they're listening to the show that, yes, I thought I heard something. So there are the odd things that I'll pick up on the audio after the fact, but nothing during recording. Now I'm looking around now, watch, things going to happen. That wasn't really an invitation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why, like, that's why I don't stick with things for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, when I talk about the black-eyed children, mm-hmm. when you give them enough recognition and attention, that's when they apparently appear. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to talk about them a lot because I don't want them knocking on my door,
Yeah. Saturday Night Live had a skit years ago with David Okora from Most Haunted, from back in the day when it first started. It wasn't really David Okora. It was one of the actors from the show. So there's David and two people walking into a haunted location, and then the David character was rather gassy, so he farted. So the two people, like the audio guy and then the other person, are like, oh, did you hear that? And he's like, no, it's okay, it was nothing. They're like, let's play it again, and then they play it, and they're like, it sounds like Raja. So it's like, no, it wasn't. So it's just funny how sometimes you'll pick up something on audio that's really nothing, but everybody, myself included, I want to hear something, but
right.
I kind of get disappointed if I actually don't hear something, or if I say, if I thought I heard, here's Roger, for example, and I play it for someone else and they don't hear the same thing, I'm kind of disappointed, because we do so badly want to get, something really good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I give Chris Whitehouse so much credit because, like, his like whole thing is the Ouija board. Mm-hmm. That's his main form of communication and investigation is with that Ouija board. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Like, I had one experience with the Ouija board when I was like 19 years old, and I'll never do it ever again after that.
Yeah. So for your listeners, anyone who knows about my show knows that I usually have tech issues, and did not
Yep.
disappoint. So yeah, lost internet, screen went black, and I'm like, oh no. But I am blaming Chris. Sorry, not Chris. We were talking about Chris, Ghost Joe, because he was talking about demons.
Definitely my fault. Always my fault. Always. Oh, so why podcasting and why the paranormal?
Paranormal has always fascinated me since I was young. I grew up on the east coast of Canada in a province called New Brunswick. And the 3-story apartment building that we lived in, we lived on the top. And it was a very old building. This is where I had my first paranormal experience that I actually remember. The building was so old that it would, the basement used to have a coal furnace to heat the building. But by the time we moved in, it was electric heat. But I saw the Hat Man in my room for many, many years, but he was short. He was about 4 feet tall. Now, I had someone a couple of years ago ask me, how do you know he was 4 feet? And I said, well, I can compare him to the height of my dresser that I had in my room. And, even today, my dad says, you used to have lots of night terrors in that apartment building. I would wake up, screaming, the man in the closet, in the closet. I had a big walk-in closet in my room. And so that, that terrified me, but it also intrigued me. And growing up, just being sensitive a little bit, and growing up, just loved the paranormal. When I first found out about Ed and Lorraine Warren, I was fascinated. It's like, oh my God, these are my heroes. They're doing amazing. Like, this is what I want to do. Now that I'm older, I don't want to do that. Not to that level anyways. Fast forward a few years, a friend of mine, my very first interview that I did on a paranormal talk show was Odd to Newfoundland with John Mallard. And very first interview, I was terrified. And I did a couple other interviews on other shows after that. And I had family and friends say, hey, you did a good job. You should start your own podcast. And my reply was always, hell no. So when I mentioned that to my husband, he says, well, why don't you start a podcast? I'm like, well, that's something that other people do. That's not something that I do. And he's like, well, why not? You love the paranormal. You love talking with people. Why not? And I started thinking, I was like, why not? Because being an investigator, I realized that a lot of people, they're traumatized when they have a paranormal encounter, especially if their significant other doesn't believe them. I mean, we've seen families break up because of it. One person thinks they've gone crazy, and the other spouse probably agrees with them because their spouse is witnessing something that they're not witnessing. So I wanted to provide a safe space for somebody who wanted to talk about their paranormal encounters. If they don't want to talk about their paranormal encounters, at least they can listen to know that they're not the only person in the world having these things happening. It's happening around the world. So that's the main reason why I wanted to start a podcast. It's just to let people know that you're not alone. And the Hat Man encounter that I had as a kid, I only found out years later that other people were seeing the Hat Man, but the taller one, not so much for the shorter version. But so podcasting like yours and mine and so many other great ones out there just kind of brings people together, I find, to know that, yeah, there's other people having these encounters too. I'm not totally crazy, if they are, so am I, and so is everybody else. But no, that's the main reason why I wanted to start a podcast.
Wow. All right. Yeah, I actually, like you, I've always been interested in paranormal. I had some experiences when I was younger, all the way up until, recent times. But like you, I've always, been interested in it. And I've always been the type, like, even with music or anything like that, I've always wanted to share my enthusiasm with people on things that I'm interested in, like, oh, you got to hear the song, or, oh, you got to see this movie, So I've always been about that. And I'm like, you know what? And I actually got started listening to the Monsters Among Us podcast. And I don't know if you've heard Monsters Among Us.
No, I don't think I have.
It's a great podcast.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, actually, Derek Hayes is the host, and he's actually on all of these Travel Channel, shows now, hosting.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and his podcast is great because he's not even the star of the podcast. He has people calling in and telling their paranormal experiences. And that's always what I always wanted to do with it, was to have people call in and tell me their experiences, kind of like you. Like, I wanted to provide a safe space for people to talk about their experiences. And unfortunately, I don't get too many people calling in. Not the first season, a few people called in. Nowadays, I don't know what's going on. I guess people are out now. People were inside when I first started in the pandemic, but since everybody's out, nobody wants to call anybody anymore.
Maybe.
But how'd you get in touch with them? How do you know those guys? Brian Bowden
and Al Santariga. I think it was through the Mallard Report with Jim Mallard. He's on Tuesday nights at 9 Eastern. He has live shows. And I heard these two guys on there and I thought, wow, these guys actually sound legit. Like, they were amazing. They were funny. They just played well off of each other. And I think we became friends. Yeah, I'm there. Oh, no, did you lose me again? Oh, okay.
No, that wasn't me. That's my recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
so,
go ahead.
Yeah, so we became friends, and then I had them on my show a couple of times together, individually. They have mentored me as well during my podcast. Anytime, especially in the beginning, because it's been 5 years now for my show. And in the beginning, they were kind of leery, especially Al, to give me tips. And I'm like, well, I don't want you to hate me, Kat. I'm like, I never could. I'm not the type of person who offends easily. So if you have constructive criticism about my show, please tell me, because I need to improve. So now, Brian used to help me an awful lot with my promo banners in the beginning. I would send him the photos and he'd do everything in, I swear, 2 minutes off of his phone. I'm like, how the hell are you doing this? But no, they still, they're such great guys. I really hope to meet them in person someday. But yeah, long story short, it was through the Mallard Report.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually. And I was very close to meeting Al a few weeks ago because he had done a Bigfoot seminar.
Yeah.
Like literally about 5 minutes from my house.
Nice.
And I guess he must do things there, or there's a few things that go on there quite often. The Putnam Valley Library or something like that it's called. And I live in Putnam County.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was very, very close to me, and just unfortunate I couldn't make it because I was working that morning and I had to go home. One of those days I told you about it. I had to run home, eat, go to sleep, and then get back to work. So unfortunately I couldn't make it, but I definitely, they invited me along to, they're like, yeah, anytime you want to go to like an investigation, a tag along, let us know. I'm like, oh, definitely. I definitely go with those guys, You're going to have
lots of fun, lots of laughs. Oh my God. I love Brian's dogman encounter where he tried to show his dominance, so to speak. It's like, what are you doing peeing in front of a dogman? Like,
yeah,
he's got brass ones, that man.
Yeah, no, but both of those guys are great. I mean, I had so much fun, talking to those guys.
How did you meet them?
It was, and it's funny too, because I want to say it was on one of the Facebook groups or something like that I was on, and I saw somebody comment or something like that, and I'm like, who are these guys? Or I was looking for paranormal groups that were in the New York area.
Okay, yep.
And they have all these New York, Dogman chapter, UFO, Bigfoot, all that stuff. And then I went to one of the websites and I saw that they did everything, all of those, So then I reached out to them like that, and it was funny because. And then I saw that they've been on your show a whole bunch of times. I'm like, oh, she's going to think I'm like stealing guests or something.
God, no.
It just happened that I came across them when I was looking for New York things because they're close to me. Well, maybe not Brian anymore, but Al is pretty close. So, so that's how I actually how I met them. But yeah, great guys. I mean, sometimes I'll even text them still. I'll message Al, whatever. Funny. Both of them funny guys. Like, I don't know if you heard the interview. Did you hear my interview with them?
Yep.
Okay. I had to throw in that stupid and I said to my dad before, because I talked to my dad a lot about this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm doing this interview. I know how to write questions really well. I said, but I don't really know these guys. So I don't know how the Bigfoot, is Bigfoot as blurry in person as he is in all the pictures.
I had loved that.
If they're going to take that good, he's like, oh, I don't know. I said, you know what? I said, they're New Yorkers. They'll get over it. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
They ended up liking the joke. So I'm like, all right, okay. But
I howled when I heard that. I was listening, had my earbud in, and I think I was actually at work. Yeah, I was at work folding laundry. I work at the front desk of a hotel, but the shifts that I work, we help the housekeeper, so we fold laundry. And I had one earbud in so I could still hear what's going on, and I'm laughing. I thought that's the best question ever.
I try and stick some humor into it because you know what it is for me. I take the subject matter seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I really do, but I don't take myself very seriously. So I try and add different jokes. Like my way of hosting things, and it was funny because going into it, I said, everybody has somebody that they kind of want to emulate with this sort of thing, whether it's a news broadcaster or something like that. I want to emulate Conan O'Brien. I want to be like Conan O'Brien is one of the funniest guys I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
I said, and Conan has like this self-deprecation type thing where, I've even stolen some of the things and put it on the podcast where I'm like, one of the things that he does on his show, and I've stolen it from my podcast, is he'll say, yeah, I have a great show for you tonight. All my other shows were crap. Stuff like that. So I've used that with my podcast before because I'm like, that's hysterical, But yeah, that's why I've always loved his style, and the man worked at Saturday Night Live. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live when it was one of the most funniest casts ever.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, he was the writer in the 90s with like Chris Farley and David Spade and Mike Myers. And
when they were good.
When they were really good. And he was one of the writers. And he was also a Simpsons writer.
Yep.
So, I was very, very upset when all that Tonight Show drama happened to him. I was really upset because he deserves that way more than Fallon. But
yeah.
But going back to the paranormal thing, because I go off in tangents and stuff.
I've been saying for years, one of the things that fascinates me the most about paranormal, in the beginning, I used to think the paranormal just was strictly ghosts, but then I realized, no, it branches out to cryptids and UFOs and Mandela effect. It's just anything weird. But what really fascinates me the most is this stuff happens around the world, and it doesn't matter what religion or nationality, what skin color, whatever. Everybody, for how long now, has had some kind of paranormal experience. I mean, when you look at various cultures' stories, that have been passed on for generation after generation about weird things, it's just something's out there. I mean, how can you not know or believe that this stuff isn't real? I mean, something's going on. What is it?
Absolutely. I really feel like we're getting closer and closer for the government to finally be like, yeah, there's aliens, and we know where they are. They're around, I know we're getting closer to it. They're softening us up for it, when you think about it. Because the way I'm seeing it is that, and somebody I think at my job had said this to me, and he made a lot of sense when he said it. He goes, think about it. He's like, many years ago, he goes, this was a joke. He's like, on the news, whenever they would talk about a UFO sighting, it was a joke.
Yep.
It was like, oh yeah, it was like a fluff piece.
Yes.
It was like a fluff piece. They'd be like, oh yeah, there was a mass UFO sighting. They'd be laughing while they're talking about it, and it was a big joke. People would be laughing. Hey, did you hear that, Sam? And now it's a serious news report now when there's a UFO sighting. They don't make jokes about it anymore.
Yep.
And I feel like there's something to that, I feel that they're definitely, especially the government. I mean, look, they've declassified a whole bunch of things. They have teams that are trying to figure out they're not aliens, but we have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
But we're spending money to make all these teams to figure out what they are. Why you that's what I'm saying. And actually, I love them, I hate them, right? But like 2 years ago, there was a news article. I can't think of the gentleman's name. I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it, but he was the Israeli space commander, right? So this is a man that was high, ranking, very well respected guy. And he came out and said, listen, aliens exist. They're among us. And he even said, he goes, President Trump knows about it. And he wanted to expose it. Mm-hmm. But, they probably told him, like, listen, if you come out and say this, especially during the pandemic, there's going to be mass chaos. People are going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff if they find out that aliens exist.
I mean, look at how the world handled the pandemic, especially in the beginning when we didn't know what it was. And people were afraid. People were angry. People were, so to find out about aliens at the same time, can you imagine what the world would have gone through?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then of course there probably would have been storming places like, oh, we want to see this, we want to see that. There probably would be people breaking into Area 51 and all these other places.
Well, they tried. Remember?
Yeah, I know they tried. Yeah.
Or that was the plan. I don't think they actually made it. I think there was a handful of people that actually showed up for it.
Right. Right. And they probably got chased away by the government. But no, I do believe that they're getting closer and closer to actually telling us, we already know, but for them to actually come out and say, yeah, you guys were right. That there's aliens, but because look, your own Navy pilots said that they saw, things. Mm-hmm. So.
And it's interesting to find that governments now in North America are putting together or have put together a team to investigate UFOs, which they don't call them UFOs anymore.
UAPs.
UAPs?
Yeah.
Okay. So now they want to investigate past. I still have to call them UFOs. They're actually investigating all these UFO experiences that people are having. So that to me tells me something too.
Yeah. Why would you spend government money on something if mm-hmm. That's the thing. I just feel like I think we're very close. I think probably within a couple of years or something like that, we're going to find out like really everything. Even this new team that they put together of 17 people with all these scientists and all these very, very smart people. They said that the program is going to be strictly like completely transparent. Like everything is going to be put out there, whatever they find.
I hope that's true.
Yeah.
And then not just throwing us a bone,
Right. I mean, but how many bones can you throw? That's what I'm saying. Like, eventually you're going to have to just come out and say it. But they're probably, that might be a strategy also. That might be a tactic. Like, all right, let's string them along so that when we finally do come out and say it, they're like, yeah, we do. And it's not going to be so much of a shock anymore because we've been stringing them along for how many years,
Give them enough information to keep them happy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the funny thing too, that came out like last year or 2 years ago. The UAP report that came out like 2 years ago was 40 pages, something like that. And they said that it was space debris. Like one of the causes could be space debris.
Well, there is a lot of space debris, but yeah.
And then, but what was funny was that they had like 5 different things that it could be. And then like the last one was like, or it could be unknown. All right. What? Yeah, that's what we're trying to say. It's unknown. Maybe
they're trying to word it that way because they don't want to cause mass panic too. Because give us a little bit of information at a time instead of just giving us everything. And I would imagine that would cause mass hysteria globally. So I feel maybe just giving us a little bit at a time, maybe they're just trying to do that to kind of, keep the masses from storming storming the hill,
And here's the thing too, like I feel like I definitely believe in it, right? I feel like obviously they're not here to harm us because they're not gonna wait for us to know about them before they're not gonna be like, well, then they know about us now, let's blow up the earth. Like they would have did that already.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna wait for us to know everything about them and then do something. You know what I mean? Like if they've been here for how many thousands of years, they would have taken over this place thousands of years ago.
Mm.
They wouldn't wait for us to know who they are. That's how I see it, at least.
I've always questioned too, because they always say there are like the good aliens and the bad aliens, of course, and are the good ones protecting us from the really bad ones, because you get a lot of people having bad experiences with alien abductions and stuff like that, and some people have really good experiences, and it just makes me wonder if we are being protected from the real nasty ones out there.
Do you believe in the reptilians?
I don't know.
Me neither.
I do believe in extraterrestrials, but I don't know in what form. I really don't.
I mean, obviously, the most common is the Zeta Reticulus, the Greys. That's the biggest one.
The way that people, I don't think I've ever been abducted. I don't feel like I ever have. But from listening to other people's encounters, it sounds just like when us humans are researching a particular, I don't know, say bears, and they're tracking them, and they have devices to find out where they're actually migrating and everything. And every once in a while, they tranquilize them and make sure that they're healthy and all that. It sounds exactly like what these aliens are doing to us, trying to know more about they're researching us. But then, like humans, you're going to be having the good aliens and then the bad ones.
Have you ever seen any UFOs or anything?
I've seen lights twice. Once I was a teenager, back home in New Brunswick, and a bunch of us, me and my friends, were out at this beach. It's like a camping area as well, and we're all laying down on the picnic tables, and we're just looking at the stars. And there's this one star in particular, zooms one way, zooms the other way, and it's just all over the place, moving quickly. And it's the size of a star, but stars don't move that way. And if it was like a meteor or something like that, it doesn't fall and all of a sudden go up and then go to the left, or, so my dad, I had to ask him, I said, do you know, because he's always been into aviation, and actually had a good friend that was a air traffic controller back home. And I asked him, like, do you know of any aircraft that could do something like that? He's like, no, kiddo, I don't know any aircraft that could do that. So we all believe that was a UFO. And then there was another time I was in British Columbia visiting my grandparents many years ago, and we're driving on the highway, and all of a sudden this big light comes out of nowhere on the left. And my grandfather thought that, there's only a field, there's no road there. And this light all of a sudden just appears, and it's starting to get bigger, and it's coming towards us, and it just kind of disappeared. And we're just like, did you just, like, what? The next day on the radio station, a whole bunch of people had called in saying about the light that they saw. So my grandfather and I just kind of looked at each other, and it's like, oh, and he used to be a pilot during World War II. And plus he worked for Air Canada, was a pilot for them too for many years. So apparently he's seen some pretty strange things in the air. But yeah, he says, yeah, that could have been, that was a very strange light. So he was convinced, and so was I, that was some kind of alien. Don't know what or why, but it was strange.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Actually, I had mentioned it to Brian and Al. I'm like, I live upstate now. I said, where, like, right near Pine Bush, because that's where this museum was, and Pine Bush was apparently like a UFO superhighway, years ago. And I'm like, but I've never seen anything. And Al's like, you will.
Yeah.
You will. I'm like, and I work at night. Like sometimes I go to work at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like always looking. I have to, because I take this long dark road, right? That's the highway. There's no street lights or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking up in the air for UFOs. I'm looking in the bushes to see if I see Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to see something. I'm gonna take a picture of this freaking thing. Or I'm gonna take a picture. I promise I'm gonna get a picture of them. But I'm probably gonna freak out though, and probably forget to take a picture.
Do you have a dash cam?
I do not. No, I should probably get one though.
Yeah,
I should.
Just for not for accidents, it's just to see if you pick something up.
Yeah.
Do you have your phone ready or a camera ready when you're driving like that, just in case?
Well, yeah, I have my phone like kind of on my dashboard, sticking there, so I could always just grab it and But who knows? Like you don't know how fast you're going to be. Like that's actually what somebody had told me once when I also said like, yeah, but how come all these pictures always come out blurry? Like, well, you got to think about it. If these things happen in the spur of the moment so fast, so you're not going to stand there and say, but if you were to stand there and say, all right, let me get a steady hand, or it's going to be over, So I'm like, all right, I understand that. That's true. That's true. Yeah, I get that.
I always explain that, like, my family and I, especially when the kids were wee, would go out for walks in the woods, with the dog and everything. And sometimes you'd see a couple of deer, and I would take a picture thinking, great, got great pictures. But then I look at my camera, my phone, and it's like, oh, son of a biscuit, it's blurry. And it's just a couple of deer, and then by the time you go to take another picture, they're gone. So right. I don't know, maybe it's like, I'm calm and I want to take the picture. Right. So, I can only imagine. I've never encountered a cryptid up and close like that. So it can only be traumatizing and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know how, there's got to be so much like preparation and like so much work just for like Al and Brian to like go out and do these investigations. Because you think about it, they're out there for hours.
Yeah.
How do you know exactly where you're going to walk, where you're going to go? It's got to be so much research involved in that, just to do that sort of thing. It's one thing to go to a haunted house. Like, all right, well, I know this place is haunted, yep. Set up some cameras and maybe you'll catch something, or, EVPs. But if you're going out in the woods,
yeah,
where these things, they don't want to be seen. They don't want you to know that they're there. So they're going to be, they don't want to come up close to you. So that they're going to try and stay away from you for the most part. So they're going to be very, very difficult to find, Yep. That's the one thing. Like it's got to be so much, so much preparation to go into that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, Brian and Al, they're so lucky. They've encountered pretty much everything the paranormal community has to offer. I mean, they're just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, it's funny too, because people are like, I believe every word that those two guys say.
Yep.
I believe every word. They're not. I'm a prison guard. Mm-hmm. I know con artists. Those two guys are telling the truth. They're not con artists at all. Like they're being completely truthful with everything that they're saying. That's what I loved talking about them. Talking with them. Because I was like, wow. I mean, I believed every single word that they were saying. They had me on the edge of my seat for some of the stuff they were saying, which was cool. And I hope it kept people that were listening, on the edge of their seat as well.
I've heard their stories, and when I heard them on your show, I was kept at the edge of my seat. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too, because like I said to them, like, I never really delved into cryptids until I started the podcast. I didn't really know much about them. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, everybody's heard of Bigfoot. The Loch Ness Monster is basically a hoax, but people are still seeing it. Stuff like that. But I mean, I had never heard of the Dog Man, and some of these other things, so it's pretty crazy. Some of these creatures and stuff that are coming out or that have been around that are being discovered now.
Yeah, the Dogman fascinates me because ever since I'm a little girl watching Scooby-Doo, I've always been fascinated with loup-garou, which is a form of werewolf, rougarou in a lot of parts of the States, like the Cajun parts. So when I found out about Dogman, I thought that sounds kind of like a werewolf. So they're all different, but kind of like in the same classification, if I'm understanding it correctly. But Dogman fascinates me, and I hope to never want to see one because I would much rather see a Bigfoot than a Dogman, just from listening to other people's encounters. They are a lot nastier than Sasquatch.
Right. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I still think of Sasquatch as Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
It's probably, that's what comes to my mind. Not the movies, not the found footage movies of Bigfoot. No, Harry and the Hendersons come to mind when I think of Bigfoot. But no, actually, yeah,
not the Patterson film, Patterson Gimlin. Right. That's Harry and the Hendersons.
Right, Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
No, but it's funny too, because after hearing about Dogman and all that, I grew up and I lived in Staten Island most of my life, which is the forgotten borough of New York City. And a lot of history, a lot of haunted locations there. And my friend, actually the friend that I was telling you about, that me and him always, he had a very strong paranormal sensitivity. He used to work, of all places, he was the night security guard at a cemetery. And a very popular cemetery at that. And he had said that, I don't think he saw it at that cemetery. I think he saw it at a different cemetery. But I remember his story. I don't talk to him anymore. We lost touch, or we haven't talked in a long time. But I remember him telling me like 20 years ago that he had seen I mean, for lack of a better term, a dog man. And he had described what people are describing as dog man now. That's what he described to me 20 something years ago. And I was like, you probably saw a dog, or you probably saw this, you didn't hear about it then, but I mean, now I'm like, holy crap, he probably really did see it, because Staten Island is a very paranormal place. It has a lot of paranormal energy in there, from, battles that were fought from the Revolutionary War to some of the Declaration of Independence being signed around there. And, a lot of history on Staten Island. But so that's why, like, every time I think of the Dogman, I think about him telling me that story too, which was, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, he must have really seen that then.
You're not as crazy as I thought.
But yeah, I mean, is that the one, as far as cryptids go, is that the one that like kind of scares you the most, is probably like the Dogman, or like the thought, like the thought of him, right? Because
the just because of the aggression level. Because I've heard, we've all heard different encounters when it comes to Bigfoot. Some of them are very peaceful and they're trying to help people. And then there's the other spectrum where, it's like all hell broke loose with the Bigfoot. But so far with the Dogman, you haven't really heard any good encounters. And like I said, because I was so fascinated with loup-garou, werewolves growing up, that's my favorite cryptid. The Dogman is probably my favorite one as well. But do I ever want to see one? No, unless it's in a safe environment. But hearing people's encounters, there doesn't seem to be any good experiences so far.
Yeah. I'd like to see like a Bigfoot or something like that. Yeah, Dogman, I don't know, but I'd like to see like a Bigfoot, or actually, I think, was it Al that said that he had seen a Thunderbird, or was that Brian?
I think it was Al. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it was Al.
That would be cool to see also, like this gigantic bird like that would be pretty crazy to see. I would just think that you'd be seeing like a dinosaur, like a pterodactyl or something, which would be pretty crazy. But I mean, look, there's only so much of the world that we've explored. So have you ever been on like an actual paranormal investigation?
Yeah, I belong to a team here called Canadian Supernatural Research Society in the Ottawa Valley here in Ontario. We haven't done too much the past couple of years because of COVID, and I actually I'm taking a little hiatus from it. Just I have other things going on, so I told the girls that I won't be able to do much investigating right now. And plus, to be honest, I have a hard time bouncing back from those late nights. The older I get, I just can't do the all-nighters anymore. It takes me like a week, literally, to be able to get my energy back. Not like when I was younger, but yeah, we've done some investigations here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually how it was with me when I was playing in a cover band and a rock band. It's the same type of thing. I'd be out until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning playing at a bar, and then I'd have to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. I can't do that anymore. It's just
No.
I don't have the energy. I'm 42 years old. I don't have the energy at all to do any of that stuff. I mean, I'd love to still play though, but yeah, I've never actually been on a real investigation. No, because I've just I started this corrections job when I was 26 years old, so it's been pretty much corrections. But
my husband is very religious. I'm more spiritual, so he doesn't like it when I go on investigations. But I will ask before I leave for an investigation. It's like, yeah, just can you give me a little protection prayer there, and makes him feel better, makes me feel better. But we also do little prayers right before an investigation. We sage, we have crystals on us. And at the end of the investigation, we always say, you're not allowed to follow any of us home. That's not happening. So, and we do sage afterwards a lot of times too. Not always, but most of the time we'll just to make sure that we're cleansed and nothing negative would attach themselves to us.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
The nice thing about being in a paranormal investigator and podcaster is you get to meet so many people in the para community. And I've had the pleasure of meeting an archbishop and a sister. And if anything ever goes south during investigations, something that we can't handle, I don't know if you know who Michelle de Roche is. She's very well known in Canada and in the States. She's done, she handles the more intense cases that I don't even want to think about. So it's nice to know that if we are doing an investigation and it is beyond us, that we do have the big guns that we could call in and say, yeah, we kind of need some help with this. But so far, knock on wood, we haven't had to do that.
Yeah. That's like, we're interested in this stuff, but
yeah.
not to that extent.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we actually covered a lot, actually.
I think so, yeah. Cryptids, ghosts, demons, aliens.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the whole gamut of things, right?
Yeah.
One thing I actually would love to have on my show, I don't know if you've done way more shows than I ever have, but have you ever had anybody that's like practice with the kinesises, the telekinesis or pyrokinesis or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No, I haven't. That would be interesting to speak to an individual like that, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, I've been looking on like Facebook groups and stuff like that, and there are Facebook groups about it, but it's never anybody like, oh yeah, I lit my chair on fire today or something like that. Like it's never anything like that. So, yeah. But I'm looking for somebody as far as that, somebody that knows some stuff about time travel or alternate dimensions. Something a little bit different than the normal stuff that I talk about. But I say it all the time, and I'm sure you agree with me. Like the paranormal community, I cannot pick a favorite guest that I've had on. I love everybody.
Yeah.
And there's such good people. Every single person, minus one guy that I've never put on, but everybody else, I mean, such good people, I mean, so accepting, very down to earth. Yeah. Somebody that's a skeptic or somebody that's not really into it, they're like, oh, well, you probably meet a lot of crazy. Like, no, I mean, everybody that I've talked to, even at the Paracon, just normal people, like everybody's been real nice, very accepting, very friendly. I can't say anything bad about anybody that I've come across, really.
I have to say that the majority of guests that I've had on my show, I've developed a friendship with them, that I speak with them, not necessarily every day, but quite often. It's just amazing. Years ago, when the paranormal started becoming a little bit more acceptable after all the TV shows started, there was a lot of drama out there, a lot of hate, and people started getting fed up with that. And I feel like people just started banding together and not putting up with the bullies, if you will. And now you have, para-unity is thrown around a lot, but there is para-unity now. I mean, more and more people, podcasters, investigators, anybody in the para community, we're raising each other up. We want to listen to each other's stories. Tell me about what, like, we'll be talking to another team, and it's like, tell us what you've experienced. Let's try and get all this data together and see if we can get a correlation. It just seems to be so many more people now are like, yeah, I'm not dealing with the drama anymore. And right. I've been so fortunate. Like, I have a lot of great people in the community that are just such great friends and knowledgeable. And it's been good.
And there's no competition either.
No.
That's what I love about it too. There's absolutely no competition, which I think is so great. I mean, even in the podcast community as well, there's no competition, which I guess because the market is so saturated, as far as the paranormal community, we're all kind of in it for the same thing. We want to find answers. We want to find, we know that it exists, but we want to find like legitimate proof that people are just going to be like, yeah, I can't deny that. That's the technology is a curse. It's a good thing and it's a curse at the same time, because now you could catch something really, really good on camera and then just be like, it's fake. Oh, good editing job. Yeah. Oh, good photoshopping. I didn't Photoshop it. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. But they'll never believe you because Photoshop is out there and it's amazing, and you can create ghosts and all sorts of craziness with Photoshop. Especially nowadays, like you could edit, do movies, do visual, like make movies just straight on your computer with special effects and all that.
Even your phone, there's some pretty good apps. Like if you have an iPhone, there's called iMovie, I think it's called. You can do amazing stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, nobody's ever going to believe the footage that's out there. And that's actually where I was going when I said that to Alan and Brian as well. I'm like, I feel like it's pointless to fake anything anymore because it's so saturated. Like all these TV shows, all this stuff, you're not even going to get 5 minutes of fame, let alone 15 minutes of fame if you have a picture of a ghost, because nobody's going to believe it.
Yeah, they just pick apart at it.
What's the point of even trying to fake something anymore? Because you're not going to get anything out of it.
So thank you so much, Joe, for doing this collaboration with me. I had a great time. And for my listeners, can you tell them where they can find you and your show?
So they can find the Warped Reality podcast on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find me, Ghost Joe, you could go to TikTok or Instagram. There's a Facebook group for the Warped Reality podcast. You could go on there as well and find me there. Or you could, email me at ghostjoeny@gmail.com, or you could call my the Warped Reality podcast hotline at 845-600-0744. And, let me know your paranormal experience, or, you could just tell me you hate the show, whatever you want to do. That's all good.
Just call me.
All right, that's all right. How about you? How can people get in touch with the Paranormal Hearts podcast?
Podbean and YouTube are my two major platforms, but they're pretty much everywhere. I'm also on KPNL network, on digital network on Thursday nights. But pretty much anywhere is like iHeart, Spotify. I'm pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. And if anybody wants to talk about paranormal, you can reach me at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. But I'm also on TikTok, Twitter, I'm on Instagram. But for my show notes, I usually add all the links. So I'll be adding yours as well there. So everyone will be able to find you a lot easier.
Same. Very good. All right. Thanks a lot, Kat.
Thank you so much.
So that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Kat Ward for the awesome podcast collaboration. We had a great time doing this. We had a very, very long talk. and it was just so great. If you guys actually want to hear the entire thing, please let me know at 845-600-0744. You could also do that if you have any paranormal experiences, or if you'd like to be a guest in the show as well. Please give me a call on that number, leave me a message, or you could email me at ghostjoeny@gmail.com. On the next episode, premiering on February 10th, it's the Valentine's Day episode. So we're going to talk some Valentine's Day stuff, have some of our regular segments back, Haunted eBay, I Read It on Reddit, and possibly even a tiny terrifying tale. And of course, Chris Whitehouse of the White House Investigations segment, and horrible reviews with Edgegrave Dave, where he reviews My Bloody Valentine. So please stay tuned for that. Check that out. Check out Kat Ward's Paranormal Hearts podcast. Check out the Paranoi Radio podcast, and go out and buy Chris Whitehouse's book as well. All right? So have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Warp Reality Podcast, and thank you to all my guests and contributors that help make this show possible. For more episodes, guest info, social media links, merch, and more, please check out warprealitypodcast.com. If you have a paranormal experience you would like to share, questions, comments, or you'd like to be a guest in the show, please leave me a voicemail at 845-600-0744, or you can email me at ghostjoeny@gmail.com. You can do so anonymously if you'd like. Also, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or warprealitypodcast.com. Have a great night, everyone, and don't forget to change your shorts.